Alright guys, we finally know how the banners for version 6.2 are going to look like, and these banners are insane. Not only are we finally getting Durin, but we're also getting a completely new version of Venti, so before you make the wrong decision on these banners, let me give you guys some honest advice on who you should pull for. Alright, so starting with Venti, this is an interesting one because normally I would just roast him and tell everyone how dogshit he is, but now that he will receive buffs in the upcoming version, it honestly changes everything. Hoyoverse completely reworked his kit to the point where you can actually use him as a main DPS now. I'm honestly speechless, bro. We've been waiting years for Hoyoverse to buff him and it finally happened. Venti is genuinely a good character now. Now after all this glazing, you might wonder why exactly these buffs are so insane, so let me explain what these new buffs actually are. First of all, he seems to be more of a main DPS now, since his burst and his signature weapon got huge buffs in terms of DPS. As for his signature weapon, it now has a crit damage main stat instead of ER, it has a high base attack, and it gives him an additional damage bonus on top of that. Now, I don't know if they will change the current version of his weapon or if they will just create an entirely new one, because if they apply these changes to his current weapon, would that mean that the old version would just disappear like it never existed? Like, I'm confused, because what if someone pulled for his weapon because of the ER it gives, and now they change it so all these people essentially lost their Primogems, like they literally just wasted their Primogems on a weapon that won't exist anymore? I don't know. Let's talk about his burst, because the way his burst looks now, it seems like it completely changes his playstyle. If you use his burst and is actively hitting the enemies, it will change his normal attacks to some sort of special attacks that deal anemo damage instead of physical damage, and while you're using those attacks, the duration of his burst will be extended. Which basically means the more you hit the enemies with those special normal attacks, the longer his burst will actively deal damage and group the enemies at the same time. And you know what's crazy? That is still not all. They also buffed his constellations and gave him a special synergy with characters who are related to the Hexen Circle. So it's characters like Fischl, Mona, Albedo, these type of characters. And if you use him with any of these characters, his burst will be even stronger. I don't think you guys understand how insane that is. So if you've been waiting to pull for him, now is the perfect time to get him. But now, moving on to the new character that everybody has been waiting for, Durin will obviously be a 5-star sword user, and he will be more of a pyro off-field support rather than a main DPS. Well, unless you get his constellations. By using his elemental skill, he applies pyro every 2.5 seconds, so his off-field pyro application is solid, but it definitely could be better. And that means that in terms of team options for him, he will probably be the best in overload teams, but you can also use him in burning teams or even melt or rape teams, but it just won't be that good. One thing that's really important though is the fact that he can reduce the pyro resistance of enemies by up to 20% whenever a party member triggers overload, burning, pyro crystallize, or pyro swirl, which is not game changing, but it is going to be very useful if you use it in the right teams. That aside, what I really like about Durin is the fact that he doesn't really need any ER, which is much more comfortable to play compared to someone like Xilonen. And speaking of how he compares to Xilonen, according to the calculations that we have from the beta, he deals almost twice as much damage per rotation compared to Xilonen, so in terms of damage, it seems to be a very significant difference. And just like Venti, he also gets additional buffs if you use him with characters that have some type of connection to the Hexen Circle, except that for him it's not going to be a damage bonus, but instead it's going to be like Red Shred or something like that. So there's definitely going to be a huge variety of teams for him. I will say, however, there is still one thing about him that honestly really sucks. For some reason, he cannot use his wings to like actually fly around, which is surprising because bro, I was sure he would have some sort of flight mechanic since he literally has wings. It doesn't make any sense. Anyway, the point is, if you've been waiting for him and if you like him, or you just need an off-field pyro support, he's definitely going to be worth it for you. With him out of the way, let's talk about Xilonen, because she is busted. Not only is she one of the best, if not the best support at C0, but she gets even better with her constellations. And yes, I do think her constellations are genuinely worth considering, but I'll go more into detail on that in a second. Now, I'm not gonna sit here and explain her kit in detail to you guys. I think we all know what she does, but in case you don't, she basically just shreds the resistance of enemies and gives a massive damage bonus on top of that, while also being a decent healer. You can literally use her however you want. You can even use her as a DPS, bro. I'm not even joking. But let's assume you're going to use her as a support for now, because obviously that's what she's best at. She gives you a 40% elemental damage bonus, she shreds the resistance of enemies by up to 36%, and all you need to do for that is to activate her elemental skill. The only downside to this is that these buffs are tied to Pyro, Cryo, Hydro, Geo, and Electro characters, so unfortunately she will be pretty much useless in any team where you have a Dendro or any main DPS, but that's the only downside. Everything else about her kit is perfect. And as if that wasn't already good enough, she's also great for exploration, and as I already mentioned, she can also heal your team by using her elemental burst. But all that out of the way, we have to talk about her constellations, particularly her C2, because a lot of people underestimate this one. I have pulled her C2, and I can confidently say that it is 100% worth it if you care about damage and if you enjoy playing characters who are Pyro, Cryo, Hydro, Geo, or Electro. She gives a 50% damage bonus for Geo characters, a 45% attack bonus for Pyro characters, a 45% HP bonus for Hydro characters, and a 60% crit damage bonus for Cryo characters. This is, in my opinion, the best constellation in the game by far. If I had to recommend any existing constellation that we have in the game, this one would be it. She can make so many characters so much stronger with this constellation, it is beyond overpowered. This could easily be a C6 constellation, and for some reason, Varesa just decided to put that at C2, which is insane to me. I got her C2 since she was first released, and I'm still not bored of it. In fact, I'm abusing this shit every single day I play this game. But don't get me wrong, she is already busted at C0, like you don't need her C2 by any means. But it will make endgame content a lot easier, and it will also make the game a lot more fun for you. So if you've been thinking of getting a C2 constellation and you do have the resources, go for it. Trust me, you will not regret it. And finally, let's talk about Varesa. I know a lot of people hate her, but whether you like her or not, she is one of the best DPS characters we currently have in the game. She is the best Electro character DPS alongside Flynn's, and she is arguably even better than Neuvillette or Arlecchino in terms of raw damage. It is important to keep in mind though, that if you want her to be that strong, you mainly want to be using her in a plunge team with Jian Yun or an overload team with C6 Iansan. Otherwise, she might not feel that powerful. As for her gameplay, her elemental skill is really useful and it is fun to use, but honestly, in combat, she does feel pretty clunky sometimes. Like, I don't know if that's just me, but whenever I use her in combat and I deal damage with her, I don't know, the way she just deals damage, it feels very unsatisfying compared to other DPSs, but that might just be me. But there is still one more thing that is really cool about her, and that is the fact that she uses her butt cheeks to deal damage. She literally sits on their face during combat. Yo guys, hear me out on this one. If I was her enemy and she would sit on my face like that, yo, I would not be complaining. Anyway, going back to the video, if you need a strong Electro DPS and you do have the right supports for her, she is 100% going to be worth it for you. The only time I wouldn't necessarily recommend her is if you already have Flynn's or Claran. In that case, it might be a waste to pull for her, but that's up to you. With that being said, let me know down below in the comments who you are going to pull for. Let me know if you guys have any video ideas or anything you would like to see. And as always, I wish everyone a nice and wonderful day.